Hi, thank you all for coming. My name is Virginia, as you all shall know by now. The title of my research is What is the relationship between a state's regulation of assisted human reproduction and the ethical values of fertility clinicians? I will start by defining what assisted human reproduction, AHR, is, followed by a fictional case, the relevance of my research, how I intend to pursue it, and its possible outcome. So AHR consists of the artificial treatments to help couples or single individuals in becoming parents. Examples are IVF, artificial insemination, PGD, surrogacy, and so on. So here's my fictional case. Natalie is a 9-year-old struggling with leukemia. All her treatments have been unsuccessful. So her parents decide to look for the assistance of Dr. Smith, a fertility clinician, in order to pursue the possibility of generating a savior sibling to save Natalie's life. A savior sibling is a child that is conceived through a method of IVF and PGD to be a genetic match to the child that has the fatal disease. All the phases of this procedure are permitted by law in this state. However, for reasons of his own moral conscience, Dr. Smith feels quite uneasy about pursuing this. And this case here is just to illustrate the reality of fertility clinicians on a regular basis. How will Dr. Smith decide? We shall see. So, Virginia, why is your research important? Well, there have been absolutely no studies about regulation in fertility clinicians, which I find really concerning. Because fertility clinicians are the ones that are interacting with regulation, and they are the ones making the decisions. They are the controllers of AHR. And more people are resorting to these techniques in order to become parents. So we need to have a closer look at what's going on and how they are deciding. And the law serves its purpose when an activity is considered to be dangerous in order to protect people in society. So as far as regulation of AHR in Europe, some states have decided to go and have a permissive regulation, which allows most techniques, a restrictive with some restrictions, or prohibitive. In some techniques will be forbidden by law or even considered to be a crime. And there are states that has no regulation, and then it is up to the self-regulation of the fertility clinic. So having that in mind, we can imagine that the decision-making process of fertility clinicians usually is this interaction of a regulation or non-regulation and their own ethical values. And as I illustrated with the case of Dr. Smith, this is not such an easy task. And Dr. Smith was inserted in a state that allowed the creation of savior siblings. But he felt that maybe that was not fair, that the child would not feel wanted on its own, that it was exploited. And as I see it, Dr. Smith has two options. He could just pursue the procedure because he's just doing his job and he is within the confines of legality, or he could just not compromise his values and refer the case to a colleague. But imagine how much more complicated it would be if he was in a state that has restrictions or has prohibitions, or it's considered to be a crime, or if it's a badly self-regulated clinic. And not just that, but let's just remember that AHR involves creation of life. So it's not just curing infertility. So it's likely that ethical values will play more than just a supporting role in their decisions. So how I intend to pursue my research? Well, I will select the European states that best represent the 4 regimes. I will conduct interviews with the clinicians from these selected states. I will use the hypothetical cases similar to the one that I exposed to you today in order to assess this relationship between regulation and their own ethical values. And hopefully, my research will demonstrate how clinicians are addressing the ethical issues in the context of regulation, and I will have a practical insight about this relationship, having an impact in medicine, law, and society by signifying a useful knowledge for lawyers, for scholars, for clinicians, for technicians, and even patients that are using AHR. So thank you very much for listening.